So just past the title page here, allowing technology to work for you. Basically, what I want to focus on today is kind of twisting everybody's perception of how we've been looking at technology. And the chances are, if you're not in a high-tech industry, then technology has always been sort of an adjunct to your business because your business existed before the technology did. And as technology has continued to evolve, we've added more and more ways to improve our technology, but it hasn't really been integrated with the regular flow of your normal business processes. So just a couple of quotes to start us off here. Information is not knowledge, Albert Einstein, right? And as we all know, we're all drowning in information, but starved for knowledge. Okay, it was John Naisbitt, who's the author of Megatrends. And then the first quote, actually, Albert Einstein ends with, the only true source of knowledge is experience. And we find ourselves now kind of at a point where for the last maybe 20 years or so, we've been in sort of this lightning fast growth of speed and capacity, getting things ever smaller and faster, delivering more capacity without kind of stepping back and asking the question about why. Go back a little bit here. So just to go over a little bit of an agenda here, I'm going to cover a little bit of a background on myself. Then we're going to go into a couple of new, well, they're not new strategies, but there's some industry strategies with the IDLE Information Technology Infrastructure Library, which is a set of sort of paradigms or parameters to look at how to implement technology. And then the unique thing that I think we kind of bring to the table that we're in the process of developing here is applying some of the lean production model technology to the service delivery. Lean focuses on decreasing waste and increasing value through efficiency. So then we'll have a little interactive Q&A, and then I'd like to actually, have this be a regularly occurring thing. So I'd like to maybe get some feedback from participants and see what they follow as value, and see if we can kind of create a series of this where we're on a perpetual basis, touching bases with local community owners and finding out how we can help meet their technology challenges and help them ask the right questions, really. So a little bit of background on myself. Make a real long story real quick. I shot a bird out of a tree when I was 8 years old, nursed it back to health, and since then I decided I was going to be a doctor. I was kind of on that track all through high school, well, up until about high school, and whether it was the educational delivery model or my adolescence, kind of just lost that drive. And it wasn't until I graduated from high school and was working a part-time job at IBM and was looking for an easier route, ended up winning and got my EMT license, the emergency medical technician, and just fell in love with medicine all over again. Ended up getting a job as an EMT at St. Louis Hospital for 2 years while I bolstered my undergraduate stuff at GAV. Then I transferred to UC Davis and did a double major in physiology and psychology. Somewhere along my 5th year there, I did an internship with a pharmaceutical company and just kind of blew my whole mind about what medicine was all about. I really had to kind of step back and take a look at why I was getting into medicine and what I wanted to do. And it was real disillusionment to see, that it wasn't, all I had thought it was going to be, just going in there and helping Johnny feel better. But thankfully, I'd had a hobby of technologies, playing with computers. I built my first computer. It was a 8086 at a workshop at Gatlin College when I was a freshman in high school, and just had been playing with them. And so I started going around knocking on doors. I landed an entry-level position at a small MSP in Sacramento. And within a couple of months, they promoted me to project manager because I was able to bring this project back on task that they had been, 2 months behind on. The way I did that really is I really didn't know anything about installing these Novell servers. So I sat down with the CEO, who was also the CTO, very small company, and he showed me how to set up the server. And I took good notes and I turned those notes into work instructions that were then duplicatable. We hired 2 more people that could take a sheet of paper, go out to a site and install these servers. And so from there, I got the attention of a technology master planner who hired me as his director of design and implementation in the education sector. This is when the schools started getting all their lottery money. And so we were out helping them design technology master plans for implementing those technologies in school. From there, I moved into being the director of technology at Masters Institute here in San Jose. And then everything crashed. Boom, crash, bang. That was the end of the dot-com bubble. It all burst, and nobody could find work in any kind of tech field for a long time. So I ended up kind of just starting my own business, word of mouth, and I did that for 16 years. Over the 16 years, I probably consulted close to 200 businesses in the Bay Area. 75 to 100 was normally my gamut of clients that I was actively working with, and it was just me. So I was working 16 hours a day, getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep, drinking 2 baths of coffee, smoking a pack of menthols. I weighed 250 pounds. Basically, boom, crash, bang again, right? Where I had to take a look at what I was doing and how I was doing it. So I stepped back. For the last few years. I worked for multiple MSPs to kind of discover what it is I didn't know, and also kind of get some more familiarity with how technology had advanced over the last 15 years, because I had kind of created this little bubble with my niche of clients. And what I got from that was a really good experience. I got to understand really who I am in the space of what I'm good at and why. And I realized that although my education in physiology and psychology didn't lead to the medical career, what it did do is give me a really good education in systems, and being able to understand a stepwise process of very complex systems, being able to step back and understand how that system interacts with another system. And then obviously the psychology and being able to understand people, which is really the main function of technology, is to enhance our lives. And it seems like a lot of businesses now get fallen into the trap. They feel like they're a slave to their technology. They have to do these and they got to do this. And I really realized that there's a way that we can look at technology from a new perspective, understanding how it plays with our business model and what we want to do, instead of having what we want to do be driven by the technology we have. So 2020, I partnered with Armando to build this type of service organization that was based on success by helping our clients to increase their value, right? So if we kind of look at where we were and where we've come from in the past, this is kind of the old break-fix model of IT, right? Where everything is working well, and then all of a sudden, boom, crash, bang, something breaks. And you have to go get help, right? So it's kind of like, well, now what? Where do I get help? Do I call the guy I called last time? Is this the same problem? And most times, because we are not taking a proactive approach to our technology, it breaks at the most inconvenient time, right? And so we're now under this pressure of urgency to get our technology back up. And these important questions, like, does it matter how those provide, what computer I get, and those type of questions, they kind of fall by the wayside, because it's like, I got to get this proposal out right now. Whatever I got to do to get it up now, let's do that. And we end up in this model of urgency. So, again, does it matter? How that's implemented? And the question is, well, yeah, it depends on, how long you want it to work until it breaks again. Because if you're not taking a good look at why you're replacing the technology, why it broke in the first place, is this the best thing to replace it with, then you're kind of setting yourself up to fail again, just, kind of delaying the process a little bit. So we'll use a little example here, let's call it the healthcare parity. So then we can all relate to going to the doctor. You drop everything's going fine. You're going throughout your day, and all of a sudden you drop a 150-pound anvil on your foot, right? Ouch, got to go to the doctor. So once you get to the clinic, again, remember, this is a parity. You go talk to the receptionist, and she schedules you for surgery. Okay, and then she pushes you off to the nurse, who then slaps the neck brace on you, puts you in a wheelchair, and ships you off to radiology. Radiology takes an x-ray of your chest. Remember, you dropped an anvil on your foot. And then tells you to go wait for the doctor, all right? So you finally go get to see the doctor, who inspects your tonsils, and then finally asks, so what brings you in today, all right? Now, all of the pieces are there, but they're not working together. So although you finally get what you need in the end, which is maybe some crutches and a prescription for some, pain meds, the process of getting there was wasteful, frustrating, and confusing, right? Because the pieces aren't playing together. This is sort of the old break-fix model of information technology, where the focus was on desktop servers, the internet, telecommunications as these individual entities, and every time one broke, you went and fixed that one until it broke again. And it's constantly, a matter of chasing your tail and keeping up with what's broken next. IDLE is the information technology infrastructure library, which is basically a set of 5 sort of principles that we use to take a look at how we implement and deliver technology. It is driven from the standpoint of the organizational flow and implementing technology that meets business objectives instead of just replacing what was broken and what do we have to do to make this project work. So instead of a sort of isolated case, it's really sort of a holistic approach to information technology. So we'll go through these 5 stages briefly here, and then see how those actually benefit the business. So, well, we'll go backward then. We'll benefit the business first. So what this does basically is lowers cost, because we are not constantly having to interrupt production and have downtime and all these things that end up and paying more premium for products because you have to have them now. An improved service because production is smoother, because there's a workflow for everything. There's a standard process for doing anything. It eliminates a lot of guesswork. It supports growth by taking a look at your business objectives and goals in the future and building out your technology to meet those, instead of, again, running into a place where you don't have enough technology to do what you want to do. And also, it's the globally accepted evidence-based practice that focuses on delivering real business value. All right, so the first stage in this is the service strategy. This is basically asking, what is it that you want from your technology? What is it your technology needs to do? And these are basically the questions that very rarely get asked, because they get asked when the server breaks and you're calling up, and then the guy is asking you the question, your IT guy is asking the question, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to replace it with this, or do you want to replace it with that? And you're a healthcare worker, you're an artist, you're a contractor, you're a bookkeeper. You don't know. That's not your job to know, and you don't have time to think. What you need is to get this proposal out now, so you leave it up to your IT guy. Your IT guy, he's probably a really smart guy, has great experience, but he's trained in fixing individual problems, like do this project and fix this. Most technicians and engineers in the field were not educated in business process, but were educated in technical process. And so those questions like, what is this technology supposed to do? What do we expect it to do? Rarely get asked. And so you end up buying technology that may or may not serve your needs. The next thing is the service design. Is an information system that meets the business objectives while balancing the overall organizational needs. So let's say that we need a new mail server, right? We've got 4 employees, and we get a quote from XYZ IT company that says, well, you need this new Exchange server. It's only going to cost $20,000, and it's going to do it'll take care of all your email, for the next 5 years. And it doesn't matter if you had 5 employees or 10 employees, you'll be set. Well, that's great, but you really need a $20,000 Exchange server, and who do you go to ask whether or not you need that? Again, going back to our first quote, information is not knowledge. There's plenty of information out there, right? Just go on the internet and look for an email server. But having the expertise to work with the not coming from our perspective as an MSP necessarily, but business owners should be asking these questions themselves before they go out to quote for a bid. Is what do I want this to do? Is it been servicing my needs? Is this where we want to go with our company? This is where we're going to go. Is this going to stop us, or is this going to help us get there? So that's a critical part of that. How long do we need it to run? How many people are going to need to run it? What hardware do we need? And what software? And then probably the most important, how do we keep an eye on this and make sure that it's doing what we actually bought it to do? Is it serving its function? So then there's the service transition. And again, this is a part where a lot of organizations tend to fall down is, okay, we've selected the right technology. We know it fits our business needs. And now we've installed it and nobody's using it. What's going on? And they're all frustrated. Nobody's getting their work done. What's going on? Well, that's because there wasn't enough time put into the service transition. This is the phase where you're talking to people, you're developing your do-it-yourself procedures like changing passwords, you're deciding which one of those can be do-it-yourself, which ones you want to have control over, training employees on the new software or the new processes, where do you go if you need help, and then if that person can help you, where do you go after that? And asking all of those questions so that when you actually do get your $1 million, golden goose egg delivered on your plate, people actually are able to use it and it provides the functionality you intended in the design phase. And now we're into the service operation phase, right? This is kind of what we like to call the status quo, where everything is running and operating. The services have been released in the organization. And this is also a part where, although we look at it as the ongoing sort of the status quo, it does require some configuration and thought before you get to that point. Knowing, who's going to take ownership of these individual processes, who's going to handle, this, and once they're done with it, where does it go, and how do we know that this is done before it goes to this point? Just like you would do in the flow of your normal business process, right? And then finally, and probably the most important, is the continuous improvement process. Again, something that gets dropped all the time in the current break-fix model because, 4:59, I finally got my computer up and running. I got that proposal set. Man, now I can go relax, right? The crisis is over, and now we can just go, look forward to tomorrow. But it's really the part where that's where we need to buckle down and ask ourselves a question again. Are our services providing what we expected them to provide? If not, why? What do we need to change? Is there now that we've taken care of that, is there now a new opportunity to provide greater value to the client through the additional resources that we've filled up, whether they be human resources or financial resources? Can we now get rid of some of these old processes and look at incorporating those into this new way of doing business or this new technology? And again, one of the areas that often gets left out in the old break-fix model. So, did I mention continuous improvement? So these monitoring and performance metrics provide data on the effectiveness of service delivery and management. Okay, again, like we just talked about. But these things are also driven by changes, right? There's hardware advances, software advances, and a lot of times you don't have any control over when Microsoft releases their new, operating system, or where Intuit decides to put an update out to QuickBooks. And those are changes that need to happen, and if you're going to continue to operate your business with those tools. There's also regulatory changes in any business, right, Dave? You got codes to live by, and those things change, and they affect your ability and how you deliver services to your clients. So these are all part of the process of taking a global and sort of holistic approach to IT. So that in a nutshell, and I know it was a really quick overview, but that in a nutshell is ITIL, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. The 5 parts are the service design, service strategy, service transition, and service operation, and continuous improvement. That's the approach that we take to implementing new services. But let's say that you've been running smoothly for a while. You really don't have that many issues in sort of that break fix thing. You don't have a lot of times where your business gets shut down because something broke. Things are running pretty smoothly. Well, that's where I think the real benefit of sort of the interdisciplinary studies we can pull from these other areas. Lean is actually a production model that was created in Japan by Toyota in the 50s or 60s, but it focuses on maximizing customer value by minimizing waste and efficiency. And so the model that we are developing is sort of this hybrid model, using the infrastructure, the ITIL paradigm as far as the governance over what areas to take a look at, but also let's look at the efficiency of what we're actually doing. What if we're not changing anything? What if we're not, what if we're just want to see how we can get more out of our technology? And this is an integral part of that continuous improvement process with the in the idle stages, right? That final process. So just looking at these two things, real simple, value and waste. Okay, value is anything that provides demonstrable benefit to the customer, right? That's something that you can say, hey, Mr. Mrs. Smith, this is again from the business owner standpoint. Because we use this technology, we're better able to provide you with this product, and that product is going to do this for you. Being able to have those value statements is sort of the identity of value, right? And so when we as an IT organization are coming in, my objective is always going to be from that standpoint of value, because there is absolutely no purpose in implementing or changing something if it's not providing an additional benefit, if it's not providing more value. The other aspect of lean obviously is waste. And this is any part of the production process that does not add value, right? If it doesn't need to be done, if it doesn't have to happen, then why are we still doing it? And again, this is one of those things where especially small businesses, especially businesses that, again, are not high tech, that have been doing their business before computers existed, where they're not really looking at this, because the first time that, we got into computers, this is the system that was set up and we've been using it and it's fine, and there's no reason to change. But if you start looking at the business processes in how you're using that technology, it may very well be that the business processes that you're using could now easily be replaced with a set of technology that would eliminate them altogether and allow you to, instead of going A, B, C, D, to go from point A to point D. So again, that's an important part to looking at how efficient you can deliver these services. So we're going to look at basically in lean, we're focusing on the types of work, right? And there's essentially 4 types of work. There's your business projects, your internal projects, your change and growth, and your unplanned work. So your business projects are those projects that the business knows that it needs, right? Dave, you're a contractor, you need to be remodeling houses and doing kitchens and stuff like that. They have a direct link to the ability of the business to drive revenue, okay? These are things like, let's say we're going to remodel that kitchen, right? What are the tools? What do we need from technology in order to do that? Well, we need some sort of maybe a graphic design program. We need an ability to collaborate between my architect and my engineer. And I need a way to get to coordinate with project management to get my electrician there before my drywall guy shows up. And so those are the types of business, that's the business projects that IT is supporting. Internal IT projects. All right, so it is time to, computers are getting really slow, or the hard drive failed. It's time to, upgrade. It's time to move forward. These are the type of activities that are more system-based, right? These are the back-end things. And again, most small businesses aren't looking at these things until they break. And then when they do, we're, again, sort of put into that urgent mode where it's like we need to get it up and fixed. And we don't really have time to go, well, is this what you really want? And where are you going to go? And how's this going to fit in? And again, part of that continuous improvement process is looking at these internal IT projects, scheduling times to reevaluate them and keep them up to date. The next thing are operational changes. Everyday operations will be registering, planning, and assessing, building, testing, deploying changes, which may also include managing the process to deploy a change that relates to patching, blah, 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 right? These are basically change, right? Things happen. There's, you get a software upgrade. You find out that there's a new code regulation you have to comply to. There's a new tax code. You get a new vendor. It's all of these things that just happen in the course of doing business. And then the last one is an unplanned work. This is, basically the showstopper, right? This is the most important type of work, actually, because it produces the most waste and adds absolutely no value, unless you learn from it, right? So this is recovery work, right? It takes resources away from what they're doing and basically stops production. And so what we want to do go back a bit. what we want to do in Lean, again, I know that's a real brief overview, but again, what I want you to focus on is looking at these areas in terms of efficiencies. It's kind of like the difference between, Newtonian physics and quantum physics, right? Not to diverge too much, but our old model of mechanical or Newtonian physics was based on material, right? Objects, matter, things that we could measure and test. Well, we got so good at measuring and testing them that we went down past the point where there was anything to measure and test, down to where it was just vibrations of energy, which is where we get quantum mechanics, right? Quantum theory is based on a quantity of energy. So this is kind of the same thing, and looking at the reality of our businesses, instead of looking at it as an isolated, break fix type of mentality where I've got a computer, it breaks, I got to fix it. I got a server, it breaks, got to fix it. My internet's too slow. I talked to my ISP, got to fix it. It's taking a look at how much energy we're putting into this whole system. Where are we using energy that's not producing value? And taking a look at those areas and finding the aspects of technology that we can implement that regain those resources, pull them back and make them viable again, instead of being wasted as, just stuff that we are waiting to get stabbed in the back with, essentially. So that's basically it in a nutshell as far as the overview and kind of the approach that I want to take. I know it was really fast and really high level. My objective in these sessions would be to work with businesses to help get some real business case scenarios that we can, work through together as a group and say, hey, listen, I'm having this challenge. I can't get my employees to show up on time. Whatever it is, let's see if there's something that technology can do, right? We'll take a look at the process. What is it, that we can use to help improve those processes. So I'm going to go ahead. There's a couple of questions that I got in the background here, or in the process of sending up for feelers, but I wanted to open it up to the audience as well if there's anybody that has any questions. I'll go ahead and cover these real quick first. Our computers are really slow. I kind of abbreviated these a little bit just for time's sake. Our computers are really slow. Should I upgrade or buy new ones? So again, we can, kind of tell right away. I don't mean to embarrass anybody or call anybody out that's on the call, but we can kind of identify right away. This is coming from that old break fix mentality, right? Of my thing doesn't work. I got to get a new thing. Do I fix this thing or do I buy a new thing, right? Without asking the question is, what does that thing do? And what do you want your new thing to do? Does that thing do a good job or not? So, in questions like this, they're great because they allow us to ask those questions. So the real answer to the question is, I don't know yet, if you're on the call. But hopefully by giving you some background in the questions that you should be asking, we can help. Obviously, definitely call us if you need some help. But it's really about asking those questions. How long have you had those computers? If it was last year, then it's probably something that could be fixed. If it was 5 years ago, it's probably something that should be replaced. But then again, what did you use that computer for? And do you still need that computer to do that thing? Or is there a better way to do it now? So I didn't really answer that question, but hopefully I gave you some a direction to go. Let's see, the shelter in place really showed us how dependent we are on our computers. And we went on to talk about how, much of an impact it was to get people up and working again and functional. How can we be better prepared if it happens again? Again, great question. And one of the things that, Armando and I are really looking at with our clients as well, because we are really looking at a new paradigm. There's been a precedent set now that at any moment, our government or powers that be can say, you can't go into work, you have to work from home. And businesses now have a new thing, just like, well, we got to have email, you got to have phones, you got to have backups. Well, now you got to have mobility. You got to be able to be nimble and at a moment's notice, pick up your business and go to a different location and work. So we're actually working on some of those models right now, looking at using things like virtual desktop, cloud storage, and hybrid models of those things to provide that flexibility. Our goal would be to create a model where again, once we have a good understanding of the types of things you need your employees to be able to do remotely, which is the first step, come up with a model that allows them to, from the, within a moment's notice, working at the desk, oh, there's the alarm, time to go home, set up your computer, get on the internet, and you're right back to where you were. Obviously, that's the pretty picture that a salesman would like to, have you sign the bottom line on. We think there's a lot more questions that need to go into, what needs to happen in order to do that. So I would say that the best thing that you can do is to be prepared next time is to start analyzing, write down the challenges you had this time. What were the things that you found were problems, and make sure you get good answers to those questions for, the next case. Okay, last one here, at least that I got, is we are not a high-tech shop. We only have a couple computers for email and QuickBooks. My thing is, so what should we be checking to make sure we are safe? Again, Dave, you're like, this is the all, I don't know what I don't know question. And so again, if I was a salesperson coming from that Breakfix model, I might come in and say, well, let's see what how are you doing for your backups? Do you have your antivirus covered? That sort of thing. But honestly, again, my background, I worked for, 15, 16 years with small businesses and continually saw them having these same challenges. And really what it's about is asking yourself, are you still using the same technology model that you used 15 years ago, and can that be changed? When's the last time you looked at how much you're paying for your telephone lines, right? Everybody, most small businesses are going to have at least one or two what we call POTS line, plain old telephone service, from AT&T, Frontier, whoever it is that they got 5 or 6 years ago. They got one for their main number. They've got one for their alarm system, one for their fax, and they could be throwing away, $200 or $300 a month on those bills every month for years. Other things like, well, again, QuickBooks and email are great, but if your QuickBooks is an on-prem service, are you able to go work remotely if you need to? And if not, are you, how are you accounting for moving that QuickBooks data file back and forth and asking those kind of questions? So I think that the best thing that you can do if you're not a big shop is don't assume you don't have big problems. Well, not big problems, but don't assume you don't have any problems just because you can't see them. The benefit, again, of technology is to provide value. And the best thing that you could probably do is to, get with a technology consultant that can go in and help you ask those questions and take a look at those areas. A lot of times, I've found businesses that, kind of in the same situation. They were running fine for a few years. There was their Uncle Mel that set up the network, or their friend, but they can't get a hold of him anymore. And now something broke, and you come in and find out, wow, they've got no backups. They've been, paying for this bundled ISP service that they got 12 years ago, on a good deal that has since gone up to their retail. There's just, there's all kinds of stuff there. So I really think that there's great opportunity for small businesses. And again, it's not always about, reinvesting in technology. Let's find you some money that you can, buy a better server for. It's really about helping the business succeed. As the business grows, they are necessarily going to need new technology. So from our standpoint as a technology consultant, the more that we help you build value, the more successful you are, the more that we will need greater technology, and the more you'll need us. So it's really, a really strong win-win for all of us. Anyway, that's what I got on those questions. Is there anything from any of the participants?
I just looked one. I haven't received anything, but I just sent out another reminder, so we can give it probably a couple minutes, see if somebody's typing something in.
Wonderful.
So I have a question.
Okay.
What are kind of some unique things that you've seen technology be able to solve as far as business issues go? I mean, you kind of gave the example of, if your employees aren't showing up on time, there's ways that you can solve that through technology. But what are kind of some of the other things that you've seen?
Well, I'll just give you kind of an anecdotal, story. The first thing that popped in my head was actually from a long time ago when I was doing networks for school districts. It was fine when we were building out the elementary schools, and we had sort of a set model in place, and I don't want to say cookie cutter, but we had a template that worked really well for K through 12, well, at least K through 6 school districts. Then we landed a project for the Milken Community High School down in Southern California, which was just this, a Hollywood high school. And they wanted everything from video production studios to, fiber in the classroom. And this was, again, 15 years ago, so, or maybe 16. So this was a really big deal. And that all went really well, but part of our deal back then was that we would also provide the management of the network after we did the implementation for several months and sort of train the new IT staff that was coming in. And that gave us a whole new education in the high school, because it turns out that high schoolers are very tech savvy. And so one of the things that we found was the greatest challenge is schools need security. And so it was really interesting. We actually created a panel with some of the students because the first thing that, was from the administration was saying, okay, well, that's it. Well, then the students can't have access to this. They can't have access to that. And it was like, well, that was the first thing they came to us with. And we went, well, but you just spent $6 million on giving them this. You're telling them you can't have access. And so it was really, sort of a creative process working with the school board. And well, in this case was a private institution. And I created a panel of students and asking them, what is it that you need from your technology? Where do you feel, stifled? Why do you think, kids want to go do this type of thing? We ended up creating sort of this playhouse server where they could just go hack their hearts away,
Mm-hmm.
And I think they even talked about, the staff was talking about the next year offering it as a course in computer safety. And then again, this is 17 years ago, right? There might be some really good security engineers out there that went to that high school as a result. But again, it's more an example, I think, of not what what a new mail server can do, but what can technology do for the process. It's looking at how you run your business, what value do you want to provide your customers, what is it that you feel is important, and what unique scenarios and how can we use a combination of human resources and technology and business process to develop a solution that provides the best value for everyone.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you guys were at the forefront of that 16, 17 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's just it. That's why it kind of blindsided us, because the only thing we normally had to worry about was somebody hacking into your network. Not that these were kids that could actually were not say hacked into the network. They were having fun with firewalls and then changing computer names and and it was random. So it was like, wait a second, I know for sure that we had this set up this way and now it's different, And so yeah, it was really interesting.
Dave, question?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have to head out real quick, but I just wanted to thank Juan, and also a shameless plug for Dicar and Juan. We are doing our Studio 38 designs, and that I don't know what I don't know thing is really important. We talked about Breakfix. One thing I think you can do is try to come up with a proper solution from the very beginning, design a system out of the gate that's robust, rather than, okay, here's what we got, it's Breakfix, constantly putting fires out. So we're engaging Dicar, and I'm very impressed so far. And I would encourage everybody, since he is a technology consultant, some of these questions, I bet if they were directed one by one, I would encourage you pick up the phone, give them a call. They're not paying me for this. This is just my pick up the phone, give him a call, and he'll probably be able to ask you a couple, 2 or 3 questions, because Juan's very good at listening. I mentioned a couple of things in passing because we were talking about engaging technology. We won't get into it right now because I'm not trying to plug us, but we're really, really, really trying to engage technology, and there's a lot of obstacles that are going to come in our way. And I've mentioned a couple of things in passing that Juan has heard in an effort to help us create a system that's going to work for us. he's come back and mentioned something that I thought, man, I don't remember saying that. He listens that well. So I would encourage everybody to reach out and engage them and at least have a conversation. Conversations are free. That's all I got for now. I got to prepare for a Zoom meeting coming up in about 15 minutes. So
Thank you, Dave.
thank you, Brittany. Thank you, everybody, for putting this together.
Thank you.
Very good.
Let's see. I don't see any more questions in the chat box, and I don't see anybody's hand up. Juan, I guess the last question I had for you, and I have a hate relationship with anything IT, electronic, whatever. I think it's 5G is kind of what everybody's talking about, right? Isn't that kind of the newest, best, whatever? Can you kind of explain to us what it is, what the difference is, who should use it? You know, give us kind of a rundown on that.
I actually have not delved too much into the technology behind it. I can tell you that it's basically using so all these again, we talked about waves and vibration and quantum mechanics. So all of these things are broken up in different bandwidths of frequencies. So 5G is another frequency the FCC has isolated in order to go to push this new technology. My understanding is that it uses more efficient compression algorithms to increase bandwidth and throughput, but there are some significant challenges and questions right now about the intensity of the literally energy that it's putting out and the effect on other natural systems and things like that. So again, I think it's an exciting technology, and I think that it's going to provide us a lot of again, mobility and flexibility moving forward. I wouldn't encourage anybody to do a heavy investment in it right at this moment. I think that a better use of if you're spending new money would be to take a look again at how mobile you are, and whether it's 4G or 5G, having some sort of a redundant mobile system, where we call it a SD-WAN, or a software-defined WAN, where you've got multiple ISPs that are coming out of your facility, so that if there's a failover with Comcast, then it switches over to Verizon 4G or 5G, whatever it is at the time. So I hope I don't want to talk about something I don't really know about. I will tell you that it's definitely something that's coming up, but again, I would caution people to steer away from bright fancy lights. You know what I mean? Just because it's newer and faster doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to provide you that much more business benefit if you're not using it efficiently. And again, where, as far as technology, that the efficiency and sort of cutting edge versus bleeding edge has an intersection. I used to call it the cost-effective functional longevity, but there's an intersection between where the price point that you're paying is more for R&D and brand than it is for the functionality you're getting out of it. But at the same time, if you go too old and too long, you are running into legacy technology that's slowing down your production. So it's a matter of kind of finding that sweet spot. And again, that has more to do with knowing your business and the processes and procedures that make your business more efficient than which particular technology you select for, it's like HP versus Lexmark for your printer is a question after what do we need to print, right?
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. Anybody else have any last minute questions? I mean, you can always email Juan or call him, but.
Yeah. And I had intended to put a link on here. Armando had offered to hand out a book that our VP of marketing or sales had actually produced a couple of years ago. And it's kind of like what I was talking about before. It's based on, what the phone company doesn't really want you to know, I think is the title. But it's really a matter of taking a look at, that example I gave you before too of, how the phone company structures their pricing and some of the regulatory things that come into play as far as being able to resell that technology. For those of you that don't know, AT&T, Ma Bell, they own pretty much all of the copper and fiber in the ground in this area and have for several decades. But in order to keep them deregulated, the government required them to resell those services and lines to other vendors. We call them CLECs, which is a competitive local service exchange carrier. And so because of those regulations, AT&T cannot reduce the price that they are offering their customers below what they offer their resellers. In fact, they have to give them a lower price. And as a result of that, those CLECs can often provide better pricing than AT&T. So Armando had offered, there's a book that Jennifer had produced, and I believe it was available on Amazon. I'm not sure it's still on, but he's offered to send that out to anybody that was participating. So I think I'll forward that to Lori, link to Lori, and then maybe she could distribute that out to, you'll have a record of who attended, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. That'd be great. And by all means, guys, if there's anything, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out, pick up the phone. Like Dave said, calls are free, questions are free. And I would much rather, spend, half hour, 20 minutes, kind of asking you questions that are going to make you, allow you to think of a little bit more holistically about your approach to IT than, recommend a product that's going to fix your problem right now.